Now joining us is Kacey Sager, NBA writer for ESPN. You can follow her on Twitter at @TheSagerBomb. We do appreciate you being on the show, Sager. My first question for you: the Miami Heat, and with us being Miami-based, we have experienced a lot of overreactions from the fan base. And do you agree or do you disagree with me when I say that these first 2 months are going to be a bit of a struggle for the Miami Heat, but the time that January comes around, the Heat are going to start to go on a roll? True or false?
I would have to say true. I mean, the whole East right now, it's definitely getting a lot more balanced than it's been in the past. There's so many teams that are like right at 500, so many teams that are still obviously, I mean, it's just so early. But when it comes down to it, I mean, later in the season, there's nothing that's more important going into the playoffs than experience. And you guys have just some ridiculous veterans on that team that are going to help these younger players really come into their own and fall into that system really well. I think you're building a really good team for the future, too.
Absolutely. And Hassan Whiteside, what in your opinion, what is his ceiling, and will he get a max contract?
I can't wait to see what his ceiling is. I mean, I had him on my fantasy team last year for a little while, so it was a lot of fun to watch him. I just love big men that, like, always want the ball and always feel like they need to be getting that rebound and fighting for it. And I think he just has so much passion for what he's doing. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what that ceiling actually is and if you guys really want to keep him that much. But, I mean, it seems like he really enjoys playing there, and I hope he gets paid.
Kacey, do you think the Heat and the Cavs will end up meeting in the Eastern Conference Finals this year?
I mean, obviously I can't say that. I cover the Hawks.
We got Hawks.
I know. That would be – I mean, it would obviously be very interesting, and if that were the case,
no bias, Kacey.
100% be rooting for Miami.
You would be rooting for Miami.
Oh, 100%.
Now, are you saying do you think it's going to be more of a Hawks-Cavs Eastern Conference Finals? Is that more so what you're thinking?
So we're just assuming then that Cleveland's in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well,
yeah, I obviously don't want to face them again, but
who's going to be Cleveland, Kacey? Who do you have?
I know.
That seems to be the obvious. I think it's the other team that everyone is curious about.
She just wants her Hawks in the finals. That's all it is. She wants her Hawks.
Hey, I
finally got to see one of my Royals just won the World Series. I've never seen one of my teams win a championship in my entire life before, so I'm still high on that. Like, I want the Hawks to do that for me too. But
what the hell?
It's such a great feeling.
My mom's actually from Kansas City, so she named me Kacey after the KC Royals. And she was pregnant with me when they won the World Series in '85. So up until last year, I had never actually gotten to see them play in the postseason. So that's been a lot of fun. I actually get to enjoy baseball for the first time in my life.
I can't even hate on that. That's awesome.
I see in your Twitter bio that you're a big fan of beards. So does that mean the month of November is like your favorite month of the year?
To an extent, although I'm kind of ready for the whole beard trend to end so I can, like, see who actually has a beard for the sake of having a beard and not just doing it because it's trendy. And plus there are a lot of, like, really scrappy beards that come about during November.
Fair enough.
We're talking about beards.
Oh, Q-File, what are we going to do with you?
I was not expecting a beard question.
Yeah,
November. I got to ask.
Steven Hart here. Glad to have you on the show. We're going to get away from the beards. We're going to talk basketball. Which happens for – correct me if I'm wrong. The last I checked, the 76ers were like 0-6, winless team.
Yep.
Which happens first?
Last defeated team.
Which happens first? The Warriors lose or the Sixers win?
Oh, that is a good question. The
Warriors won 80.
Jesus Christ.
I think the Warriors lose first. I just think that, I mean, right now the league is Steph Curry's. And
absolutely,
it's just, can he really play with that intensity every night? I just feel like I mean, they're in the West, and there are so many good teams out there, and eventually there's going to, I mean, and you can't fault him for it, but eventually there's going to be a night that his shot isn't falling and that he's not just playing out of his damn mind, and there's nothing wrong with them losing. I just don't, they're going to lose eventually, and
obviously, yeah. So
eventually his shot's not going to be there. He's not always going to be able to hit every shot. But.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. So I'm from near New York. Now, obviously, I'm no Knicks fan. I'm not a Nets fan. I'm a Magic fan. I was born in Orlando, so I tend to root for the Magic. You know, they're irrelevant.
Jesus Christ.
I'm pretty sure that the Nets got their first win last night in Houston against the Rockets, while the Knicks only have 2 wins this season. So which team do you think will be more relevant coming the end of the season, the Knicks or the Nets?
It's got to be the Knicks. I mean, I saw the Nets play, what was that, a couple weeks, like maybe last week. And, I mean, Lopez went off on us a little bit, but really they don't have anyone. I mean, and I like Jarrett Jack because he went to Georgia Tech. I went to Georgia Tech. They have Thaddeus Young, too. So I don't, necessarily hate them as players or anything, but I think that New York has a lot more potential.
You say that you went to Georgia Tech. I went to Florida State. So were you happy when your honeybees beat my nose?
I'm so sorry. I do because this is the point in the season. This is what happens. This is what we do. We get to the point in the season where our hopes for maybe achieving something big are gone, so we just start dashing everyone else's hopes. And, I mean, it's the ACC in general, though. Everyone just starts beating each other. And as a fan of the ACC, I would rather have teams be ranked higher, and it sucks that, we ended up – I mean, it was exciting. I'm not going to act like I wasn't excited, but it still is better for the ACC for there to be stronger teams that are ranked higher, and so us beating you guys was not a good thing for the ACC.
Well, let me ask you a college football question. When it comes to the Power 5 conferences in college football, a lot of analysts, especially people based in the SEC, say the ACC is the weakest conference in the nation. Do you agree or do you disagree with that?
Honestly, I really have not been watching a ton of college football over the past year or so. I mean,
yeah, I can't blame you.
Historically, we haven't done. It's
Tech fan.
For being an ACC fan too. It's not necessarily how we stack up against all the other conferences. It's always the SEC versus the ACC, and I don't really have a good argument for it not being. But I mean, at the same time, that's why Florida State being a good team is important.
Yeah,
a good
I do have
for
to.
it.
Yeah, I do have to agree with you there. Well, back to basketball, since NBA is your expertise. You bring up Steph Curry earlier. Everybody likes to say that LeBron James is the best player in the world. I'm guilty of it myself. But are we starting to shift that phrase more over to Steph Curry nowadays?
He's just been so much fun to watch. And, I mean, I think people kind of are starting to forget that his ankles are made out of glass. And I hope to God that nothing happens to him. And I hope he can stay healthy because he's just such a fun guy to watch. And also he's on my fantasy team too. So I'm definitely rooting for him. I think that, I mean, he's definitely...
More importantly.
No, not more importantly.
Jesus Christ.
But pretty importantly. But no, I mean, LeBron's getting up there in years, and he's having to take time off. And right now, if I were starting a team, I would build it around Curry over LeBron.
Okay.
Wow, that's bold.
I can't even hate on you for that. Well, let me ask you this, because back to Miami, a lot of people originally didn't really care if Mario Chalmers had got shipped out of Miami, but then you see a lot of people start to say that they're going to miss him and all this stuff. And then there was another conversation with the whole Mario Chalmers situation and I want to see if you agree or you disagree with me on this. There was a few people, including myself, they called Mickey Arison, the owner of the Heat, cheap. I'm only calling him cheap in the terms of comparing to Cleveland. You see the Cleveland Cavaliers, They're spending money left and right. Eventually, themselves, they're going to be in the repeater's tax, and they're still going to spend money because LeBron has the power and the control over Dan Gilbert's money. So when you compare Mickey Arison to Dan Gilbert, is he being cheap? Because this isn't necessarily the right time to be saving money when you have a team in Cleveland who is spending money and they're the obvious favorites in the East, right?
I mean, yeah. It's an interesting question. I do think that you guys are still building right now. I mean, you have veterans. You could, in theory, win. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how everything gels for you guys. And so you don't necessarily want to be, like, skimping on salaries and everything. But you can't buy a championship either. And, I mean, I think the Nets are proof of that, too. I think the Royals are proof of that. Like, we don't really spend a lot of money, and we managed to win. I think that, I don't know. I mean, who are you guys really going after? You wanted to keep Chalmers that bad?
Well, I didn't really care either way,
it's just interesting from, like, an outside perspective because I didn't think that he was necessarily that big of a fan favorite, and then it has been interesting because there has seemed to be a lot of backlash from it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Miami fan base can get a little weird at times, but my only point is you trade two players, Mario Chalmers and James Ennis, to Memphis for two players that nobody's even heard of, and
right,
I just don't think that right now
in that
is the time
preseason
to
game
save
when you guys
money.
were up here.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I mean, that's definitely gonna hurt you guys too. I mean, I've heard of Bino. I haven't heard of Stokes though. So I mean, I have, but I'm not super familiar with this game. I mean, I agree that it's.
I'm excited about Stokes. He's a young guy. I'm more excited about him. But I'm moving to the Western Conference. You're talking about the Warriors a lot. Do you expect them to repeat as champions this year?
It's just hard to imagine anyone beating them in a 7-game series.
I agree.
It really is. And I love San Antonio, too, and I would love for them to win another championship and for them all to retire on top. That would be great. As long as it's not Houston or the Clippers. As long as it's not one of them.
Not a big fan of those guys or what?
I mean, I love basketball. Basketball for me is all love. Even the teams that I hate, I still love. The Hawks are my team, but I can find a million reasons to watch any game. But I sincerely hate the Clippers.
Okay.
And
last question.
If it had ended up being like a Cleveland-Houston finals, I wouldn't have watched it. I don't think.
Last question. We'll go ahead and get out of here.
Well,
no, we're running out of time, Steven. We don't. Steven, we're running out of time, bro. We don't have time. We got to get to the next segment. Dylan is waiting for us. But we'll go ahead and not even a last question, just your final thoughts, because I know you're itching to talk about your Hawks, Kacey. So go ahead and let us know about your Hawks. What do you want to say about your Hawks?
I'm just so excited. It's a really weird year for me because it's the first time that I've actually really covered them, and so I almost feel like I'm out of the loop on a lot of other teams just because I've had to put so much focus into this. But it was just, I mean, back when we took the Pacers to 7 games in that first round and we were the 8th seed, it was the first time in a really long time that I got to be excited about the direction the team was heading. And I just adore every single guy on that team. It's really nice. I feel like we're getting our money's worth out of all of our guys. And at the same time, we're the first team to really pay a lot of them, too. And it's just a really good place to be mentally. It's been awesome talking to all the coaches. They're really happy about the season, the direction it's heading. I mean, we're nowhere near performing where we're going to be at the end of the year. There are a lot of new guys. No one's near their ceiling either. It'll be interesting to see, what Splitter's able to do for us because he still hasn't quite gotten as comfortable in the system as we thought he would be this early on, just because he should have been used to it in San Antonio. But it's been a more difficult transition than we were expecting. But I think there's a lot of potential. I think that we could go on another run. That whole 19-0 run was pretty ridiculous to watch. But I think that this year we're going to be focusing a lot more on just like the longevity versus actually winning games. I think we might win fewer games, but I think we're going to be a better team for it. And I really hope that we end up playing you guys and not Cleveland. That would be great. That would be an awesome Eastern Conference Finals.
Kacey Sager, NBA writer for ESPN. You cover the Hawks for who? Is it Hawks Hoop? Is that the name
Hawks
of
Hoop?
it?
Yep, it's through True Hoop Network, so it's like team-specific coverage.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being on the show, Kacey.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. You know, I didn't know that it was possible for a interview to be so entertaining but yet so clunky at the same damn time. But that's exactly what that interview was. Clunky as hell, but entertaining as hell. And I'm going to have to get Kacey back on the show just because that was funny. Dylan Goldman, the 11-year-old evil genius, joins us next!
Interested in